and welcome to a brand new video of the Targeted Individual Program, Targeted Individual Experience. Welcome, and I hope this video will provide plenty of information so that you guys can truly understand what is going on, the lies that we're being told. And as a targeted person, targeted individual, it is very important that we understand exactly what is being done to us, what had been done to us, and what continues to be done to us as targeted individuals. Okay, so let's get into the discussion. All right, just hold on a sec. Okay, so there is a new report on China, and China has been working on brain-computer interface, BCIs, for the past, I would say, probably 4 decades. Okay, that would be my guesstimate. Could be wrong, could be longer, but I highly doubt it. And I think during the 1970s, and towards the 1980s also is when China, knowing what the United States were doing, were engaging in, were developing, couldn't be left behind. And they themselves, within the past, I would say the past 2 decades, have been on this huge push to develop mind control technology, right? And so when we as TIs talk about being psychologically manipulated through coercive persuasion programs, also being manipulated through what is called silent sound, and being implanted with microchip for BCI, people don't want to believe us. You know, they think that we are crazy. You know, they always use the mental illness labeling as a way to discredit, okay, to take away the rights of those that they have engaged in non-consensual human experimentation, right? And in order to hide or conceal what they're doing, psychiatry is the #1 tool that they will use to conceal the crimes against humanity that they've been engaging in. All right. And we all know here in the United States, not just within the United States also, but across the world, around the world, the United States has engaged in non-consensual human experimentation, whether it be the U.S. government or U.S. corporations, such as the pharmaceutical companies, as well as the military industrial complex, okay, who created biological weapons and has dropped them on remote villages in Africa, in India, in South America. All the stuff is documented. And yet people refuse to believe what we are saying. Well, like I said, China is very open about its development in the field of mind control technology. Okay, something that the United States is not, though you can find articles, particularly on research that was done during the 50s and 60s and well into the 70s of neuroscientists who were funded by the CIA engaging in mind control experimentation. Okay, and like I said, there's nothing that I say that is of my own opinion. Okay, everything that I'm saying is documented. Okay, and you guys can go and look it up yourself. You guys can go and do the research and find the articles, the research paper, right, about this stuff. Even on the U.S. government websites, such as the CIA Freedom of Information Act website, portion of the website, you will find documentation regarding mind control technologies, and particularly the use of what is called silent sound spread spectrum. Okay. And so let's get into it. 1 sec. I just, my uh, visualizer is behind me. I need to put it to the front. Guys, excuse me. Okay. Um, let's see. All right. Okay. Well, for some reason, it's not still showing up behind me. Let's see here. Here we go. Let's do this. Okay. All right. There you go. All right. So now that we have the visualizer, I can do this. All right. Now, let's get to the article. Okay. This is from the website independent.com UK. Scientist builds brain computer interface that connects via the ear canal. All right, now let me do this so you guys can see the complete heading or the title of the article. Okay. All right, so researchers in China have invented a device that can connect people's brain to a computer via their inner ear. The SPL Brain Computer Interface (BCI), developed by a team from Tsinghua University in Beijing. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the name. It is a Chinese name, and it's the pronunciation is kind of hard for those of us who speak English. Okay, uses a flexible in-ear material to establish a digital connection to the brain. It follows recent advances in BCI technology, which has seen companies like Elon Musk Neuralink test brain chip capable of reading the minds of pigs and monkeys. Ultimately, the technology could offer full bandwidth data streaming to the brain. Now, I don't know if you guys ever watched the movie Black Widow, but in the movie Black Widow, you had a neuroscientist who had implanted pigs with a BCI, and she was controlling the pigs with her laptop or tablet device, right? She was controlling the direction. Okay. And it's funny, when we see things like that, we never seem to make the connection of who is writing some of these scripts. Okay. Because we know, and it's a fact, that a lot of the sci-fi ideas that comes out of Hollywood are the CIA, are people who used to work for the CIA, or the CIA had some form of involvement in coming up with these technology in a way in which in the movies it looked kind of futuristic, right? Now, for those of you who don't know, Black Widow, that movie Sudden took place in the 1980s. Okay, so if in the 1980s in that movie they're showing you that this can be done, it can be done now. There's nothing new about it, right? And so we got to really, really think about the lies that we've been told. and continue to be told, and about the omission of the development of these technologies by the US government and the security agencies. Okay, because like I said, China is very open about its development of mind control technology. Okay? All right, so where was I? Unlike Neuralink device, the latest invention does not require surgery or other microneedle-based invasive method to install, which the scientists claim makes it suitable for daily use. Current method of connecting BCI via the air involve support systems like AirPlug or 3D printed attachment. However, the spiral design means it can be slid in and out without blocking the wearer's hearing. The hollowness of the spiral E ensures that all subject could hear audio stimuli in the outside world in real time. The researchers note, adding that its unique structure demonstrates that natural and discrete wearable electronics can be integrated into real life applications. The research was detailed in a study titled Conformal in Air Bioelectric for Visual and Audio Brain Computer Interfaces. It was published in the scientific journal Nature Communications. Now, not only did they mention auditory, but also visual. So as TIs, when we talk about, our implants, and we are implanted, and how they can see through our eyes, now you know that it has been possible. Okay. So from my experience as a TI, particularly when I'm under heavy remote neural monitoring, whatever I'm looking at, particularly if it's a certain color or a certain object, I will hear a lot of police sirens, okay, and a lot of car honking. Okay, and again, we're talking about what I'm talking about is how the those within the security agencies, right, who develop these implants, these BCIs, and those within law enforcement, particularly higher ups within the FBI, also play a role in developing the technology, but also having state and local police have access to the signal from the microchip. So, for example, when I'm sleeping and I'm being awakened out of my sleep, right, going from unconscious to conscious, as soon as I awake, not even open up my eyes yet, all right, they will hit me with what I call a hit and run with police siren. It's very loud and very fast. Now, when this happens, it happens intracranially, meaning that I'm hearing it within the skeletal structure of my body, right? So in my brain, my skull, right, and then you have your brain. So it's your skull on the, it's protecting the brain. So I'll hear it, and like I said, I hear it internally, and I think that I use the example of being on the water. So being on the water, right? You kind of hear but it's not hollow, right? But you're not hearing it from like outside, right? So it isn't as if I was recording the noise campaign, you guys will hear it. But when this happens, I can't record it because it's not external, right? It is something that's that's externally being beamed into my brain, right? So into my through the ears, right? Let's see if I'm explaining this correctly. But just let me just say this. It's the sound that comes from inside your skull, right? So that's the best way I can explain that. So it's not like you're hearing something on the outside, a noise on the outside. And they will do this from time to time. And what that does is to always give you this confirmation that you are microchipped, that they have the ability to hijack your consciousness, right? So not only do they program you subconsciously, but they can do it consciously by hijacking your conscious state, right? So when you, excuse me, when you are awake, okay? And what makes it difficult is because, again, you're not hearing another person's voice. You are hearing your own inner voice. Now, let me say this. They don't need to implant you to manipulate you in such a way, but they need to implant you in order to get direct feedback, right, from your conscious mind. So when they want to develop ways in which to neutralize a target, right? So let's say, I'm a black man, and we know the FBI, the CIA war on black leaders. It's well documented, okay? And the idea or thought of another black Christ or black Messiah, as stated in the FBI COINTELPRO letters, is to destroy or control and discredit, and to discredit also. Okay? All right, so let's continue. The hollowness of Spiral E ensured that all subjects can hear audio stimuli in the outside world in real time. The researchers noted, adding that its unique structure demonstrated that natural and discrete wearable electronics can be integrated into real-life application. The research was detailed in a study titled Conformal In-Ear Bioelectrics. I think I already read this. All right, let me scroll down. And here is a visual example of what this is, all right, and what it looks like. The technology could allow applications like translating thoughts into text, control digital object with thought alone, or even augmenting human memory. A 2019 report from the Royal Society said the technology had the potential to transform medicine and fundamentally change how we interact with technology and each other. However, it warned that BCI raised critical ethical concerns relating to privacy and human rights. Neural and brain-computer interface may challenge the very essence of what is to be human, the report stated. Working out how and even if we want to use them requires an open and inclusive debate involving many voices and all sectors of society. Now, they always talk about, the medical positive, right? But they never talk about the dark side of these things. Okay? They never talk about how these things can be used to manipulate people, right? They never talk about how these things can be used to steal your intellectual property, not just who you are as a person, but also if you are an inventor, you're a scientist, right? But to steal your discovery, your inventions. It's funny how they never talk about that. How they never talk about using this technology to control leaders of other nations. Okay, the Russians have been talking about this stuff since the 1980s. And as I said, the Russians, guess what I hear? Okay? Because there's always this subliminal message they try to send me. Or if you leave the country, we'll arrest you. And they use the police to try to intimidate me. If you go to Russia, we're going to blow up the plane that you're traveling on, or we're going to make it hard for you to get out the country. Right? You go to China, same thing. Right? Now, as a victim of non-consensual human experimentation done by the U.S. government, its security and law enforcement agencies, why would I want to go to a country that's friendly to the United States? Why would I do that? If I did that, that means that they would probably most likely approve that, because the same thing is being done in those countries. Right? And as I said, approve that, the police sirens. Remember, I always talk about how, again, they try to take away my disability. Right? And so if and when they do that, I'll simply leave the country. If I'm allowed to, then they're going to have to arrest me. But I'm definitely leaving. Okay? I mean, do you think anyone in their right mind, okay, who is being experimented on, who have been injured, not just psychologically, but neurologically, right? And how they use coercive means to make it seem that they haven't psychologically damaged you by using the police, right? They try to intimidate you into talking to someone, or if you don't talk to that individual, we're going to arrest you, as I say, by using the police, right? Like, for example, when I'm over by Pam and I stay over there, right? When I'm thinking about, maybe I should go home, they start using the police sirens. And sometimes I get into this adversarial mindset where I'm just like, well, you know what? I was thinking about staying, but I'm going to leave now to see what they do. And you guys heard me talk about it on my videos. Right? Yet somehow they don't think that that is not psychologically damaging to what they're doing to me and other TIs. Yet they can convince the public, or try to convince the public, that the longer I stay there mean that they have not psychologically damaged me, even though they use it to target me. Okay? And the way how they've been doing it, as I explained lately, is to do this kind of hit and run with her. So she'll come out of her bedroom, target me, run back into her bedroom, right? To null or neutralize the extreme fight or flight phenomena. Doesn't mean that they haven't psychologically damaged you. What it means is that within that particular setting, they've learned how to neutralize the fight or flight phenomenon. But if you were to go somewhere else, would they be able to neutralize that fight or flight phenomenon? I think not. Because you see, as a TI, when I studied this program, okay, I've also created defense mechanism and ways in which, where if I'm in the two most environment that I'm in, whether it's at my house or over by Pam, right, I know how to defend myself when we are being irradiated with microwave and radio frequency. Now, when I go somewhere else, it's different. That's not going to happen because I have not been in that environment long enough and been there numerous times to where I can develop defense mechanism for that environment. Okay? So understand the deception and the manipulation in what they do. But like tonight, when they turn up that frequency so much to where we all know that there is no defense mechanism against it, right? So what I have to do is that when that happens and I start to feel that extreme fight or flight phenomenon feeling, I leave, but I don't accuse her of targeting me, right? And again, my kids have seen enough of arguing between me and her and me accusing her of targeting me and me leaving in anger, you know, and I had to learn how to not do that, to protect the psychological mindset of my children. But understand this is what they want. They also want to damage your children if you're a TI and you have kids. When you look at the black community as a whole, and I always talk about the black community, you see the same thing being done. The difference is that the majority of people within the community in which black people live are being manipulated in such a way that they're not self-aware of the covert tactics and manipulative tactics and process and methods that has taken place and continue to take place. And what they do is to give them a little bit of information. And like I said, this is why black people in America are the most religious, because they can use religion and supernatural aspect as they do in thought reform. You know, if you're going to read Robert J. Lipton, A Criteria of Thought Reform, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Okay? All right. So, again, I keep having to show you guys that this stuff is not new. And that also is possible. And not just possible, it's a reality. It has been a reality. Okay? All right, so let's move to the next article, right? The brain implant that turns thoughts into text. And again, they love to talk about it being a new type of stuff. But in this case, they're saying a new neural interface, right? So when they say a new neural interface, how many versions of neural interfaces have they developed so far? Okay. So the brain implant that turns thoughts into text. A new neural interface let people type with their mind, and a crafting journey into material science. Researchers have developed a brain-computer interface that is able to read brain signals from people thinking about handwriting and translate them into on-screen text. The team hopes this technology could be used to help people with paralysis to communicate quicker than before. So again, listen to how they word these things, as if these things are new. Okay, as if now this version of the neural interface is new, but BCI, a brain computer interface, is nothing new. And I've shown you guys before. Okay, they were working on this stuff from the 1930s, right? And they got more advanced. First of all, what they've learned from the Nazis, particularly in psychological manipulation, brainwashing. Okay, so when you read about the CIA, when the prisoners of war came back from the Korean War, and somehow they seem to show this allegiance to the captors. Okay, the people who were realizing this were not the psychiatrists or psychologists, right? So you got to understand the people who were working for the CIA at that time. A lot of what they've done was based out of ignorance. And not, and I mean in some very negative way of thinking, right? So we talk about the dark triads, because during World War II, the Nazis basically conditioned the German people into what is called self-deception, to not want to see the truth. It's like how we as black people are today. The vast majority of black people do not want to see the truth because, again, of the religious indoctrination. Okay? So this is why when you bring certain things to them, they always want to give you a Bible and tell you to read certain scriptures as if that will help. You know, the least religious group of people in the United States, even though, you know, what they show you on television, you'll think is the most religious group of people. But the least religious group of people in the United States are white people. The most religious group of people in the United States are black people. Okay? So understand the tricks and the lies of the white media and the role it plays in manipulating our minds, our reality, our way of thinking, our behavior, our thought patterns. All right, let's. I don't want to read all of this, but I just want to read just a few of the questions and the answers that were given. All right, so the interviewer, he says, it does sound incredibly complicated because it sounds like you would need to know the inner working of the brain, this like in-depth neuroscientific understanding, but actually you're kind of avoiding that by using pattern recognition. So it is that like a machine learning system. Yeah, exactly. It just learns based on having seen it many times before. So that part of the calibration process where we collect data of the participant trying to write all these different letters multiple times, and then the algorithm is able to then through those many repetitions kind of form an image of what each one looks like. Now, does that sound familiar for those of us who understand how manipulation works, how programming works? And this same thing, it's being done through repetition. So when I talk about fixation drills is one way in which you can condition a person. And it's because it is repetitive, right? And it also depends on the frequency of the repetition, right? The more the frequency, the more severe the conditioning, right? Or the psychological damage, that's what I call it. Because when you do this sort of conditioning to a person's mind, they already know what kind of person they're creating. You know, I used to say when you do this to an individual, you don't know what kind of person you're conditioning, what kind of mindset you're creating. But they do know. They certainly do know. They can create whatever kind of mindset they want within an individual or individuals or a group of people. Okay? So, you're so far try this out on one participant, and they basically had to do a load of training to show a computer what's trying to write A look like and B. So at the moment, it's personalized to their brain. Definitely in the future, we want to look towards ways of making that process a lot faster. And we also hope that when we translate this to additional people, we'll be able to leverage that so that it won't take as long on those individual people, right? That there'll be some shared structure. So this is where artificial intelligence comes in, right? This is where, Chat GPT comes in. And what they have done, okay, instead of having people come in to train the AI, what they've done is create a program, right? Which is Chat GTP, which is the AI itself. And then you release it to the public on the internet. So people will upload their thought patterns, what they're researching, what they're working on, if they're in school, what courses they're taking, what tests they're taking. And they've basically gotten the public to teach the AI for free. Okay? And now you have millions, tens of millions of users of Chat GTP every day teaching this AI your personality, how you think, how you word certain things. Because you remember, when you are typing or you're doing research, and are you studying what it is that you're learning, you're teaching that AI, what your personality is going to be like, right? How you word things, how you ask a question, those sort of things, right? So what they, again, what they have done is now use the public to train this AI into the inner workings of their personality. So imagine, 100 million people use Chat GPT. That's something they could never do in the lab or in a facility. They can never do that. But by releasing it in the form of which they have released it as Chat GTP, ask it anything, let it write your paper, let it write your script, all that stuff. Okay? I don't use it. But because what they're doing now is teaching this AI how to replace them in the job market. But, and what they'll do is they'll have their trolls talking about how great Chat GPT is, right? And everybody's getting hooked on it. Social media is a drug. The internet is a drug. They have figured out how to manipulate our minds, how to make us high off of attention, how to affect us negatively, our emotions negatively, how to change our thought patterns. They've done this online. And many people don't realize and understand how they're being conditioned, how they can weaponize people against a person. Okay, when you look at the previous election before this one, when Hillary Clinton was running against Trump, and what happened? How they weaponize certain information, certain lies, how they engage in propaganda, weaponization of propaganda against a presidential candidate, and how social media, particularly Facebook, was used to condition groups of people to hate a particular candidate. And this is what I try to show you guys when I go outside in society, and how they have weaponized people against me. Okay? So, and there's a video online of this actually working. So comparing your participant using your new handwriting based BCI system compared to a previous method, and the cursor method is very impressive, but it's relatively slow. So I can see the moving the cursor around to YOU space M, whereas your participant here, it's noticeably and impressively faster. What's the comparison here? The original point and click typing system peaked at around 40 characters per minute, whereas this new method does 90 characters per minute. So 90 characters per minute is about 18 words per minute, which is kind of exciting because it starts to get into the range that's maybe comparable to normal handwriting speed, or in this case, kind of comparable to how you would type on a smartphone. Now, remember too, this is the private tech company, probably some small startup company, all right? And, we know that the CIA, when it develops certain technology, it will pass it to American tech companies to give them an advantage over their foreign competition. Just as how the United States accused Chinese companies, tech companies, of being state run or state funded, so too does the United States fund tech companies and tech corporations. When corporations get billions of dollars each year from the government in subsidies, they're funded by the US government. Okay? So because again, we live in America, America is our country, but what they've done is to make it seem as if, China or other adversaries are the only countries who are funding their corporate, corporate entities within their countries. But the United States does the same thing also. Okay? Next article. Mind control technology has arrived. An AI-powered brain decoder can now read your thoughts with surprising accuracy. Again, trying to make it seem as if this technology is new. Okay? But it is not. So let's go to, before I read this, let's go to this website. This is the US government. This is the NIH. Okay? In which they talk about the combination of brain-computer interface and artificial intelligence application and challenges. Okay? And let's see if I can find this part. But it talks about how this research has been going on for over 50 years. Okay? So let's just say, so we're in 2023. This is in 2000, right? A pioneering studies published in 2000 by Kennedy and colleague first demonstrated that an invasive BCI device with a special electrode implanted into the outer layer of the human neocortex could be decoded to drive a cursor on a computer monitor. Okay? Studies in non-human primates have shown that cursor-controlled BCIs can achieve multidimensional neural integration with 2 or more degrees of freedom. One-dimensional 1D cursor control is achievable using EEG with even related desynchronization. Using, as I said, desynchronization, right here, very low though, because you guys always hear me talking about synchronized movement, right? And sometimes when the signal between me and the perps are not in line, you'll see them either driving fast to the intersection, or if they're on foot, they'll be running to the intersection. So we can have that synchronized meeting, right? Or synchronized crossing of pathways. Okay, so um, all right, so let me read it over again. All right, so one-dimensional 1D cursor control is achievable using EEG with event-related desynchronization using decision trees, subsequently string selections together to make a final choice. Two-dimensional 2D cursor can be achieved using techniques such as fMRI or EEG. Recent work in 2017 reported the development of a high performance invasive BCI for communication, using two algorithms to translate signal into point and click commands. Okay? So again, this is not new. So when they talk about new mind reading technology has arrived, they just mean an improved version of what they've been working on, of what they've already developed. Okay? So for a few years now, I've been writing articles on newer technology with downright Orwellian headlines. Headlines that warns Facebook is building tech to read your mind and brain reading tech is coming. No, they're already here. We already seen Facebook engaging in psychological manipulation. Facebook and Instagram, right? But I think Instagram and Facebook is it's this. I don't know if this was before Facebook bought Instagram, right? But we've seen it has been reported on, and I talked about Cambridge Analytica and how Facebook was, how this company and Facebook were manipulating its users. Okay, manipulating their their trying to find the right word here, but basically manipulating their emotions against a particular presidential candidate. Okay, but why wasn't Facebook fined by the U.S. government? Why did they put on this charade in front of the TV cameras and not hold Facebook accountable and fine them? Why? Because the CIA has heavily infiltrated Facebook. You have so-called ex-CIA employees are now working at Facebook. They are the chief executive officers, the chief technical officers, the chief financial officers. They have embedded themselves into Facebook. Okay? Well, the technology is no longer just coming, it's here. It's been already here. It's been already here. You want to know how I know it's been already here? Because I am a victim of non-consensual human experimentation. I've been implanted. So have my twin brother. So have other persons we call ourselves targeted individuals. And when you go to the Freedom of Information Act on the CIA website and type in mind control technologies, you will get declassified, redacted information about Russia and the Russian mind control programs. But you also get articles from the Defense Times, I think, that talks about the 1990s during the Waco, Texas standoff, David Koresh at the FBI wanted to use Russian mind control device on David Koresh to make him surrender. But because they couldn't, the Russians couldn't guarantee that the device would not cause harm to human beings, they never pursued it. Okay, so whether they didn't pursue it, which I think they did try to pursue it, but it didn't have the outcome in which they wanted. So they decided to, uh, you know, did what they do and basically murdered uh, a lot of people, right? Again, to hide the fact that probably they did use it and probably cause damage to not just David Koresh himself, but the members of, I think they call themselves the Branch Davidian. Okay? Because when you look at how that whole thing played out, if you didn't understand what the FBI wanted to do, you're just thinking of it as, well, and again, it didn't make sense for them storming that compound in the manner in which they did. But when they are trying to hide the crimes that they've committed, they will do things like that in order to get rid of the evidence. Okay? So, with the help of AI, scientists from the University of Texas at Austin have developed a technique that can translate people's brain activities, like the unspoken thoughts swirling through our minds, into actual speech, according to a study published in Nature. In the past, researchers have shown that they can decode unspoken language by implanting electrode in the brain and then using an algorithm that reads the brain's activities and translate it into text on a computer screen. But that approach is very invasive, requiring surgery. It appealed only to the onset of patients, like those with paralysis, for whom the benefit were worth the cost. So researchers also developed techniques that didn't involve surgical implant. They were good enough to decode basic brain states like fatigue or very short phrases, but not much more. Now we've got a non invasive brain computer interface, BCI, that can decode continuous language of the brain. So somebody else can read the general grist of what we're thinking, even if we haven't uttered a single word. Now, there was a video, I did a video where you had an individual who was paralyzed, and they claim that they were able to read his thoughts just by what is called rapid eye movement. All right. And so he had a monitor, and this monitor was a special monitor in which it would read his eye movement and would read his mind and will translate it into text on screen or spoken words. And this was years ago. Okay. This article is from where? May 4th, 2023. So again, I want you to understand how they will hide things. And, the vast amount of people in the public sphere don't even have a clue of these things. Okay. And again, I go back to my favorite article. Okay. From the New York Times in 1970. 1970. Right, by Margie Scoff. November 15th, 1970. Brain researcher Jose Delgado asked, what kind of human would we like to construct? Okay, and I'm just going to come down to this part right here. Okay. In a small corridor off the end of the main hallway are the animal cages full of rhesus monkeys and gibbons. Right now, Delgado goes into one room, opening the cage of a female rhesus named Linda after his 8-year-old daughter. Hello, hello, Linda, he said softly to the monkey, who scampered up on the wire mesh ceiling. It's okay, come down. He takes a piece of apple, holds it out to Linda, and whatever, right? So now, that's nice, Linda. Come down. She consents at last, comes swiftly to sit in Delgado's arms and throw her own around his neck. He parts the hairs on her shoulder, revealing an almost invisible transdermal brain stimulator. Linda has been wearing this for over a year now. It's very important in its implications for humans. One of the real difficulties with humans is the cosmetic one. Now, he says one of the real difficulties for humans is the cosmetic one, not the fact that the brain is hard to decode. Okay? Remember now, they've been doing this stuff from the 1930s. This transdermal can be placed below the skin and sealed forever so that there is no unsightly plugs or equipment showing. We're working now on another one that would be even smaller. Okay? So again, they're trying to convince us and tell us that these are just new and emerging technologies, and the advancement is within the past 10 or 20 years. No. In the 1990s, they were implanting people. They were in the 80s. They were using silent sound spread spectrum to manipulate and condition people. In the 1970s, they were lobotomizing Black community leaders. Okay? Again, I'm not saying this just to say this. This is documented. So when I say that the Nazis got the idea of eugenics from the eugenics movement here in America, I'm not wrong. You can go look it up. And when I say that when America, through Operation Paperclip, the importation of thousands of Nazis, scientists, doctors, psychiatrists, sociologists, electrical engineer, rocket scientists into the United States, given jobs within the government, had government buildings named after them. Okay, I want you to understand the mindset of those within those agencies. Still today, they don't have a Nazi mindset. They have an American eugenics mindset. Couple that with the dark triad personalities traits. Okay. There is another article, right? Psycho-civilization and its discontent, an interview with Jose Delgado, physical control of the mind. The letter from Professor Delgado carries two insignias. One is made of Hebrew letters and what looks like a Torah scroll. Under the scroll, it says Lux est virtutus. Veritas, light and truth. The other insignia read Investigation Ramon E. Calcha. In our letter to him, we had explained that we are two artists who have been studying his astonishing research, and that we are interested in his views on the relationship between humans and machine. Delgado, Jose M.R. Delgado has written that he will be most happy to receive us at his home in Madrid. Delgado name is a constant of on various conspiracy websites dedicated to the topic of mind control. Those with names like the Government Psychiatric Torture Site, Mind Control Forum, and Periscope, the internet has in fact become the medium of conspiracy theorists. The network function. It's funny how, again, they love to call people conspiracy theorists for exposing the truth. All right. And we know that the word conspiracy theory, the two words conspiracy theorist, was coined by the CIA in order to discredit those who spoke the truth. Okay. Now, there's also conspiracy against rights. So when somebody called me a conspiracy theorist, like I said, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I engage in conspiracy facts because everything I talk about can be researched, can be verified. Okay? You don't hear me talking about alien technologies and all this stuff. That is an idea that has been implanted into certain people's mind to go on social media and spread that narrative. They don't even know that they've been manipulated with silent sound spectrum technology. They don't. Okay? So, the network functions as an endless library where the very web structure lends itself to a conspiratorial frame of mind. The idea that every phenomenon and person can be connected to another phenomenon and person is the seed of the conspiracy theorist's claim to make a connection between things. Again, you know, like I said, they can never call me, they can try to call me a conspiracy theorist. In the fact that when I talk about my experience, okay, I may not have the tangible proof except for the damage that was done to me. But then, how do you explain the damage that was done? How do you explain the neurological damage, the physical damage? Okay. And, they can always explain the psychological damage, right? They can say, well, went to depression, had a nervous breakdown, or what have you. They can always explain that, right? But when I'm being told, have I ever played sports and how many concussions that I have? And I'm like, what? Well, your injury is consistent with people who play sports and have head trauma. Or my spine, the damage to your spine is consistent with someone who's been in a serious car accident. I can explain that, but would people believe me? And this is why I do the research. And I said, I can explain that people would believe me. The NY Predator Department officers sitting in their car doing this. Always trying to use the police as an intimidating force, in fact. Okay? Hear them again. Intimidating force. They do it. Sorry. Okay? So, let me just scroll past some of this and let's get to the fact that this guy, this neuroscientist, was talking about connecting the human brain to computers in the 1960s, probably earlier than that. Okay, because as I just read from the article from 1970s, they had created a transdermal transceiver in which they implanted it into the shoulder of a rhesus monkey. And so, what was the purpose of this transdermal receiver? It was for mind control. It was for controlling our emotions, behavior, just as you can see the video of Dr. Jose Delgado with in a bull fighting ring with a matador and a bull, and he has a remote control in his hands. And the bull charges the matador, and Delgado presses the remote control, and the bull stops, unable to display any aggression towards the matador. Okay? So, and again, all right, so we talk about the Nazis now. Delgado, all right, I said, let me just read this. Anyhow, it was at Madrid University that Delgado began his research on pain and pleasure as the means of behavioral control. After World War II, he became the head of the Department of Neuropsychiatry at Yale's Medical School. In 1966, he became a professor in physiology. By that time, he had further developed the research of the Swiss physiologist and Nobel Prize winner Walter Rudolf Hess, who had used electric stimulation to chart how different parts of the brain control different motor function. After a series of spectacular experiments on animals in Bermuda, I'm sure there were some human beings in there too, probably black, right? Delgado wrote, if you insert electrodes directly to the brain of cats and apes, they will behave like electronic toys. A whole series of motor function can be triggered based on which button the experimenter pushes. This applies to all body parts: front and back paws, the tail, the hind parts, the head, the ears. Excuse me. Using electrostimulation. Hold on a sec. Okay. So, using electrostimulation in a group of gibbon apes, Delgado succeeded in dismantling the usual power structure within the group. He gave a female ape with a low ranking a control box connected to electrodes that were implanted in the group's alpha male. Now, I want you to, this is key here, because I want you to understand the dynamic that's happening now between black men and black women. Okay? So, he gave the female ape with a low ranking a control box connected to electrodes that were implanted in the group's alpha male, and the female learned how to use the box to turn the alpha male on and off at will. Okay, so I'm going to explain this in terms of my targeting and how they use Pam to trigger me, right? And to try to get me to become her servant. Okay? So, and she tries to use things. I'll give you an example. So today I woke up, getting the kids ready for school, made them breakfast, ironed their clothes. Okay, my son got dressed. He left to go to school on time, right? And she says to me, the kids do so much better with you. You don't have to tell me that, okay? The statistic shows that when there are two parents in the home, black children do better and have better outcomes, life outcomes later on in life. But it also shows that children raised by fathers, black fathers, also have better outcome later on in lives as compared to when they're being raised by, or when they reside in the household where it's only the mother. They have the worst outcomes later on in life. So go figure. So anyway, so again, because they know what they were going to do for the rest of the day in terms of targeting me. So I had taken a shower and I went to iron my shirt. And so when I went to the ironing board, she left one of her underwear on the ironing board, right? There was a light blue. And again, I'm like, why did she do that? Because I asked her, I said, hey, do you have to iron your clothes? She was like, no, I'm wearing my scrubs today. So I don't need to do that. Now, she's never done that before. All right. So now when she comes home now, they get her to target me in such a way. And when I say I am leaving, she acts surprised. Why are you leaving? Now, the night before, she was like, because I actually did the morning before, I was trying to wake up so she can go to work on time, And she's like, you stresses me out because I said, listen, I'm just trying to make sure you get out of here on time, okay? But, again, when it comes to me and trying to help her in how many ways, she doesn't listen. She take it as being hostile, and particularly because I confront her when it comes to certain things that I don't let her feel that she can speak to me however way she wants to speak to me. She can do whatever she wants, particularly when we're in a relationship, right? And this is why our relationship didn't really pan out the way, one would hope, right? Not only because of my targeting and the psychological effect it had on me, but her inability to, and as I said, my targeting, yes, I am a targeted individual. And I will keep on repeating that and saying it as long as I'm being targeted. So you can use all the sirens you want to use. You're not going to stop me from saying that I am a targeted individual, because I am a targeted individual. Okay? Let's get that straight. So anyhow, so, she's always like, when you leaving, when are you leaving? You need to be out of here. You need to get out of here, right? But again, when I'm there, she doesn't have to get up early in the morning to iron the kids' clothes and make them breakfast. She stays in bed until minutes to 8, right? And, when she come home, she thinks that I'm going to be cooking. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Okay? I already overextend myself by cleaning and all this stuff, right? But I do it for the kids. I had to mop the floor because the floor hasn't been mopped in months. And when I walk on that floor without any socks, I have to constantly wash my feet. All right. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to just throw out some of the stuff that's there because, it's old and, it needs to be thrown out. So I did that. All right. And then it wasn't too much. The mopping, on the other hand, was a lot for me because of my back. And so afterwards, I had to take a muscle relaxer. I usually take it before, but this time I took it after. All right. So again, whenever you do certain tasks, you see, they believe that in order for me to get my disability, I have to be in the wheelchair, I have to have a leg cut off, an arm cut off, what have you. Right. But it is very difficult for me to bend down. So I'm constantly having to bend down and hold on to something. Right. On top of that, whenever I do clean afterwards, I can barely move. My back tightens up. This is why I decided this time I was going to take my muscle relaxer after, which helped greatly. All right. As I say, which help. So again, certain words that I will say that they will use the police sirens because again, they want to isolate you. They want to take away your support structure, right, and leave you homeless, dependent on drugs, without anyone to support you, right? anything like that. I mean, not support you financially, but support you in ways that, like emotionally, having friends, and really, truly, I don't really have friends. Okay. So, and as I say, truly, they do this because they hate the truth, right? Because of what it is that they've done and continue to do. So, all right, let me finish reading this and then I'll talk about certain words because I had them. I created a file with the names of with the words, right? That they'll constantly use the sirens or the car honking. Anyhow, let's continue, right? So, like I said, just trying to show you guys how, particularly within the black community, between black men and black women, how they cause this divide, where they give black women a false sense of power over black men. Okay? So, the electrodes were inserted into the ape's brain and connected to an instrument that the Gato called the stemoceiver. The stemoceiver was an ideal instrument for two-way communication. Researchers could affect and at the same time register activity in the brain. From earlier prototypes where the lab animals were connected with wires, a remote control model was later developed that could send and receive signals over FM waves. The device was developed from the telemetric equipment used to send signals to and from astronauts in space. So imagine how far reaching, particularly with the implants we as TIs have. So we can be anywhere in the world and they could affect us. Okay? We have already established radio contact with space. Now it's time to establish contact with the human brain. A reoccurring reframe in Delgado's article. Okay? Or articles. All right? So, and again, here's something that you guys can even go on YouTube and find, right? It's a CNN special from 1985 called Electromagnetic Weapons and Mind Control. Okay? So, even in 1985, the media was talking about this. So, why hasn't the media kept up on this? Now, you can find, I think on cable, you have the History Channel that have brought up some of these things into, they've made a show in it, and where you had the actor from one of the Star Trek series that was revisiting some of these things and talking about it, right? But the mainstream media, no, not a word. But we do know in 1985 on CNN, a special called Electromagnetic Weapons and Mind Control. The reporter claimed that Delgado experiments were limited to animals, nor is there anything in the text on the various websites that indicate how far Delgado went in his research. Well, why would there? The CIA has classified many documents, and they're still classified today. And they will declassify what they will, as long as it doesn't show that they themselves were working on these types of technology and were experimenting on human beings with this technology. Okay? His experiments on humans seem to have fallen into a strange collective amnesia. I wonder why. But anyone can walk into a well-stocked American medical library and take out Delgado's own reports and articles on the subject. There we can find his own candid, open description of how he moved on from experimenting on animals to humans in an article called Radio Control Behavior in the February 1969 issue of Journal of Nervous and Mental Disease. Delgado, Dr. Mark, and several other colleagues describe what was the first clinical use of cerebral radio stimulation, IRS, on a human being. A stemmer receiver itself only weighed 70 grams and was held fast by a bandage. One of the patients hid her stemoceiver with a wig because the experiments lasted days or weeks. The patients were scrutinized thoroughly. Everything they said was taped, their EEG was recorded, and they were photographed at regular intervals in order to document changes in their facial expression. Okay, now I'm going to show you guys something before I continue this. All right, and they were, the perps, particularly I play Fortnite because it's very relaxing for me. And they'll have some of the perps come in there with the names, right? Would be Ugly Face, Chimp, Monkey, they'll have Assassin and stuff like that. Really negative words. Okay. So let me do this. All right. So since I became a target or a TI, you can see on the left side of my face, particularly my chin, and it used to be worse than this. All right. So you'll see like a bulge underneath. If I do this, you can see slightly. But when I do this, if you're standing there next to me, you can't, it doesn't look that bad on the camera because of the lighting, but in person, it looks bad, right? And so they'll come in and they'll try to mock me and do these, these kind of things. And really and truly, I don't really care. I've never been a person that has been into my looks. Other people would be like, well, women would be like, you're handsome. And I'd be like, thank you. But I never thought of myself as that in that manner. I don't think about, my looks in that way. If I go out, I try to dress nice or what have you, or dress decent, depending on where it is I'm going. But, I'm not self-indulgent in that way. Okay. So just wanted to show you guys that. Okay. And I'm also thinking that maybe I had a stroke and didn't even know it. Because usually people who have stroke, you'll see one side of their face kind of, either like slightly down, but, who knows. But I definitely attribute to my targeting. Okay. So we're here. Okay. In one of the article photographs, we see two of the subject engaged in spontaneous activity. They were both girls with bandages over their heads. The girl in the background is holding something in her mouth, perhaps a harmonica. The other girl is bent over a guitar. The Delgado colleague, Dr. Mark, is smiling at them. Mark has already achieved some notoriety at this time by claiming that all antisocial behavior is caused by brain damage. Now, let's think about this for a minute, right? In the 1960s, which group of people they were saying was antisocial because they were protesting? Anybody want to take a guess? It was black people. That is also where you see they started to include antisocial behavior in patients that were diagnosed with schizophrenia. And so what happened when they arrested civil rights leaders? They would diagnose them with schizophrenia. Why? Because of their protest. Okay, there's a book. It's called How Schizophrenia Became the Protest Disease, or the Protest Mental Illness. Okay. So, this recommendation had been the mass scanning of the American population in order to detect such damage in time and correct it. Delgado and Mark's article offers short description of the patient who had the device affixed to their brain. What did I say? This is the first time I'm reading this article. Okay, I have not read this before. A black 14-year-old girl on the border of developmental disability who grew up in a foster home suddenly goes into a fury that leads to the death of her two stepsisters. A 35-year-old white industrial designer who ended up killing his wife and children flies into a rage when other motorists try to overtake him, and he chases them down and tries to run them off the road. Their aggressive behavior is supposed to be registered by the stemmer receiver in the way a seismograph registered the Earth's tremors, and the same stemmer receiver is then to turn them off via the RF transmitter. Delgado bombards us with a steady stream of anecdotes, scientific comments, and provocative rhetoric, questions that are only interrupted by occasional tender comments directed to his wife. He tells of his work at the Raymond Y. Collier Institute in the 1930s. In order to save a few paltry pennies, he would take a shortcut through the zoo on his way to and from work. He would wander through the zoo along the dawn and dusk and would hear lions and tigers roaring in this jungle in the city. After the war, he came to conquer nature by his own way in Bermuda. So many people don't even quite understand that in the Caribbean, the CIA was heavily involved in a lot of the coups, a lot of the killing of political rivals, or even prime ministers in office, okay, in the Caribbean. And we all know about Bob Marley, in which the CIA orchestrated an attempted murder of Bob Marley. This is very well documented. Okay. All right. Let's see what else he has to say here. Delgado stretches out after Strawberry Tart. He has come to think of a case in Pittsburgh in the 1950s where a robber was offered a milder sentence in exchange for being lobotomized. I was operating electrodes into people's brain at the time, together with my good friend David Koskov. It was Koskov who carried out the lobotomy on the robber. The patient was quiet after a while after the operation, but then reverted to carrying out robberies again. So imagine how many people they were lobotomizing, okay? And, it was, no good, right? The barbaric behavior of the so-called prestigious scientists, neurologists, neuroscientists, okay? And these people are celebrated. They have plaques building their name after them. And they were some of the most barbaric people, while calling, particularly black people, barbaric. Okay? So, in despair over his unreliability, he decided to take his own life. He wrote a suicide note addressed to Dr. Kurskov. Doctor, all your work have been in vain. I am an incompetent man and a criminal. I am taking my life, but I am shooting myself in the heart, not the head. I donate my brain to you for research. Wow. I wouldn't donate shit. Okay? Cremate me. All right? Anyway, Delgado wife puts her arm around his shoulder and says, a very little has happened since then, dear. And very little has happened since then, dear. All right? There's still a lot of bums running around. The comment makes us both look away. These are the attitudes of these people back then. And they still are the attitudes of these people now. No matter how the American Association of the APA, American Psychiatric Association, want to apologize for black people for the use of psychiatry as a weapon against them, it's a hollow apology. They are still using psychology and psychiatry as a weapon against us. They're using technology as a weapon against us. Okay? And as we as TIs, this is what they're doing to us as well. Okay? So, a moment later, we were sitting on a sofa. Delgado admits that not one useful application of the stemmer receiver has come out of his research. We knew too little about the brain. It is much too complicated to be controlled. We never knew which part of the brain we were stimulating with the stemmer receiver. Well, we know that's a lie. And again, he has to say these things in order to, he's probably been told by the CIA not to give the extent of his research, right? The success of his research. Okay? Because in that article from the New York Times, he was very candid. But yet, in his older age, right, he's very, very, very avoidance. Okay? So again, here it is, and I'm glad they say this, right? So he says, we didn't even manage to prevent epileptic attacks, which we thought would be the simplest thing to do. We never found the area where epilepsy attacks originated. He said all of this without a trace of bitterness, as if in passing. We were surprised by his casual attitudes towards the stem receiver, which in the 1960s and 70s, listen to this, were heralded as a great contribution to science. To demonstrate the power of their invention, Delgado and his colleague orchestrated violent scenes in the lab. In her book, The Brain Changers, Scientists and the New Mind Control, Maya Payne described a film where Delgado, where Dr. Mark attached a stem receiver to an electrode in the woman's brain. As the film opens, the patient, a rather attractive young woman, is seen playing the guitar and singing Puff the Magic Dragon. A psychiatrist sits a few feet away. She seems undisturbed by the bandages that covered her head like a tight hood. From her forehead to the back of her neck, then a mild electric current is sent from another room, stimulating one of the electrodes in her right amygdala. Immediately, she stops singing. The brainwave tracing from her amygdala begin to show spikes, a sign of seizure activity. She stares blankly ahead. Suddenly, she grabs her guitar and smashes it against the wall, narrowly missing the psychiatrist's head. The same incident was described in one of Delgado's own article. His experiments was repeated 3 days in a row. But yet, they would like to tell you now that his stem receiver didn't do anything. They didn't learn anything. All right. But I want you to understand that, at the time, they were so proud of what they were doing that they wrote about it. And as they got older, and the CIA has classified their research, their technologies that they've created, and had made numerous advancements to the point where now the implantation of human beings can be done on a mass scale. A mass scale, okay? And these implants are so small, but they can be used to manipulate us in ways which is unthinkable. Not only that, but they can identify us through our consciousness because of the implants. Okay? So I'm not going to read all of this. You guys can look up the article yourself. Okay? Now, I want to just touch on this for a minute here. All right? It's important that, wow, I'm already at over an hour and 36 minutes. Wow. That's a lot of information. Okay? And you guys can go to Braggin.com. That's Peter Braggin and Linda Braggin. I think her name is Linda. No, sorry, Ginger. See that? Ginger Ross Braggin. And as I couldn't remember her name, get the police sirens. So they always use the police siren when I can't remember things, as if that's supposed to jot my memory to remember things. Or it could mean that because of the damage, the neurological damage that they've done to me, that they're trying to use that as some sort of I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Oh yes. So when they get these individuals to try and make false accusation because of the damage they've done to me, and I continue to show it and what they've continued to do, right? So they will try to use people to make false accusation, right? So for those who are involved, if they're charged with the crime of conspiracy against my rights and crimes against humanity, right? That if they go to jail, they'll send me to jail too. Hey, that's fine. As long as their asses go to jail, I'm fine with that too. Okay? Because I know they have more to lose than I do. And they know this. And I know this, and they know that I know this. Okay? So, read this on this page. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on this website you guys can read. Okay? But the role of psychiatry in paving the way for the Holocaust. And I talk about how they have been sending me these subliminals, right? Not even subliminals, but these messages about how, particularly when it comes to us as black people, my people, that they are going to put us back in slavery by doing a couple of things. One, dividing black men and black women to where we'll turn our backs on each other. Two, and again, using various manipulation and various tactics, right, in order to achieve that. Two is to create within our generation of younger people the dumbing down of their minds, which we see happening today, right? And to control the population of black people in the United States, and to make other groups, and shout out to Dr. Claude Anderson for revealing this decades ago, right? And eventually creating mass poverty within the black population, mass unemployment, right? And how are they going to, because we know that if there's, poverty leads to crime. We know that, they know that. So with the mass unemployment of black people, particularly black men, they already know that there's going to be an uptake in crime, right? So how do they go about controlling that anger, that's frustration? Again, is to implant black men in particular and black boys. Okay. And so how do they go about it? How do they justify it? By using various tactics, by manipulating our mind, using silent sound spectrum to create a criminal mindset, by using, creating that criminal mindset, then drugs, okay, using drugs as a weapon, using sex as a weapon, weaponizing everything against us, including ourselves against each other and ourselves. Okay. So, I'm going to end this here. I'll continue another video in which I'll talk about certain things as and I have to get this book to The War Against Children of Color. It's out of print. I think I have it in my Amazon list in books to get. So we're going to be discussing this. All right. So with that being said, I will talk to you guys on the next Targeted Individual program, Target Individual Experience.